To break down the Bucs and what to expect from them in 2020, we're now joined by John Ledyard, who covers the team for Pewter Report. John, you got Lance Minnow and Paul Dottino here on Giants.com's Big Blue Kickoff Live. Appreciate the time today. Hope you and yours are safe and healthy. How's everything on your end?
Doing great, guys. Doing great. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Our pleasure having you on the program. And, John, let's not beat around the bush. Let's get right to the subject at hand here in terms of Tom Brady, by far the biggest development for the Bucs this offseason. And when I look at what Brady could do for the offense, I'm looking at it more in terms of ball security, John, and I'm curious your perspective. It goes without saying, Jameis Winston, 30 interceptions. They had 41 giveaways as a team. How much before Brady even steps on the field this season, is that an improvement in terms of helping the offense by protecting the football this season?
Yeah, it's considerable. I mean, I think one of the biggest things when you watch Bucs tape from last season, I think the reason, the nail in the coffin for Jameis Winston was that they felt like around midseason, week 10 or so, the rest of the team took a turn for the better, and they were held back in kind of a big push at the end of the season for maybe one of the last playoff spots, or at least to be a serious contender for one of them. They were held back by Jameis Winston and the mistakes that just he could not get away from him. So I think that is one of the biggest things when you look at kind of how the second half of that season unfolded in terms of them looking at their options in the offseason and saying, we need better ball security at quarterback. That's huge for us. We have a good football team, and a football team with the arrow pointing up in a lot of ways. Young and exciting, athletic on defense, smart, physical finally for the first time in a long time. Tons of weapons on offense. We need a quarterback who's going to take care of the ball. So I think Brady was like the hot, was the dream. And then, but I honestly believe they would have even though he's not even a scheme fit, but I think somebody like Teddy Bridgewater, just to be, even if they were going to be a more conservative offense in a lot of ways, I think they would have rather had that and relied a little bit more on their defense and their run game than they would have gone back to Jameis and risked those turnovers. So it was huge for them. It was a huge focus of their offseason, and it's a big reason why Brady's kind of like the dream out of that, because they can still be aggressive on offense, don't have to neuter themselves at all in that way, and they're going to take better care of the football as well.
I'd like to explore that a little bit, John, because we all remember when Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning went from the Colts to the Broncos, and during that free agent dance that he did with a few teams, it was all about Peyton's going to bring his playbook to that team, and they'll run his plays. Tom Brady's coming from the Pats, going to Bruce Arians, who has a very specific offense now with the Buccaneers. So how much of this is going to be a blend of Brady and Arians? How much is it going to be Brady? How much is it going to be Arians? What can we expect to see?
I think you're going to see it be a lot of Arians' offense, but there's going to definitely be input from Tom Brady. And I think already they have a lot of similar things that they like to do and ways that they like to attack opponents. Everybody kind of always thinks, Bruce Arians doesn't use tight ends, but I don't really think that's true. The Bucs last year were 8th in the NFL in terms of 2 tight end deployments, playing a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field. And remember, R.J. Howard was hurt. They didn't have Rob Gronkowski last year, and yet still they were rolling out 2 tight end sets a lot of the time, even if it was Anthony O'Clair out there. So Bruce loves to play with 2 tight end sets. Obviously, Brady helped make 12 personnel kind of the fad that it is in today's NFL with 2 tight end sets, and what he was able to do in New England consistently over the years. And now he's got one of those guys that he did a lot of damage with, and Rob Gronkowski, and a lot of shot plays come out of 12 personnel, and that's why Arians loves it, because he loves to be aggressive and take shots. You get 12 personnel out there on offense, 2 tight end sets. Defenses are more likely to be in their base. They roll a safety up when you flex your tight end. You've got single eye coverages, means one-on-ones on the outside, less safety help for corners, and you take your shots, and that's where Mike Evans thrives. And so I think Brady loves a lot of the same things. New England's done a lot of the same things. I bet the Bucs operate heavy out of 12, maybe not quite as heavy as you guys know the Eagles did last year, over 50%, I think. But I bet they're second or third in the league in 12 personnel. They take a lot of shots out of it around midfield. I think they work the seams with the tight ends, and they try and create mismatches. And those guys, Gronk and Howard, can run, and Gronk's one of the best seam runners ever, and that's an area of the field that Arians loves to attack, and where Brady's made a living with Gronk over the years. And so there's a lot of kind of stuff that's going to merge really easily. Chris Godwin played heavy, over 500 snaps in the slot last season. Brady's had a ton of success with slots in the short to intermediate game. So a lot of it's going to merge way more naturally than people think. I think people don't think the Bucs Bucs, Brady doesn't throw the football down the field anymore. The Bucs always throw the football down the field. That's sort of true, but I think a lot of it was Jameis forced stuff down the field. He was actually a less accurate quarterback down the field than Tom Brady by like 4 percentile points last year, and Brady still threw it at a league average. He still threw beyond 20 yards, right around 15th, 16th in the NFL last season. So it wasn't like he wasn't throwing deep, and he was in an offense with no vertical threat. So I think you out of the Bucs, you got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Scotty Miller, a lot of these guys that they have. I think he's going to throw it down the field just fine. I think people are going to see that any arm strength concerns and things like that are pretty overblown.
John, I'm glad you brought up Brady's deep ball versus him getting rid of the ball relatively quickly, because that was always his MO in New England. And you look at the numbers last season, Jameis was sacked 47 times. Now, as you well know, part of that is the quarterback holding on to the ball as opposed to the offensive line play. But the offensive line for the Bucs has certainly been called into question over the last few seasons. They drafted Tristan Wirfs in the first round. What do you make of this offensive line in being able to protect Brady and him being able to play off of this group?
Yeah, I think that's the big question mark on offense. I mean, every other position group feels pretty great except for maybe running back. And, running backs, I think it's been proven that if you're average at that position and that's the worst part of your roster, you're doing pretty okay, I think. So I don't think that's a huge deal, even if they are average. But the offensive line, that's a big deal. I think what's happened quietly in Tampa Bay is Ali Marpet and Ryan Jensen, their left guard and center, being two of the best interior offensive linemen in the NFL at their positions. Marpet probably a top 3 or 4 guard in the league, or left guard for sure. And then at center, Ryan Jensen, maybe one of the best based on some of the older guys now kind of falling off at the position of the league, kind of needing a little bit of a revival at center. And he's done really – last season was – Ryan Jensen was a dominant football player, and his first season in Tampa Bay was a little bit disappointing. So the new offensive system came in, and he really acclimated himself really well. Leaders in the locker room, both of those guys too. So those guys, I think you feel really good about. Donovan Smith has went from a kind of average, below average player to like a good, solid starter at left tackle. There's still really ugly moments at times. Brady has always survived with kind of average tackle play because he feels edge pressure so well. I think the interior spots are arguably more important for him. And so I think you have 2 of those nailed down. Alex Kappa, the right guard, is an interesting situation because he was a bad player, I think, his rookie year. He was not very good at all. Then this past year, I think he reached like a league average type of level of play, which is a big step in the right direction for a guy coming from Humboldt State. You knew there was going to be a learning curve. You weren't worried after the rough rookie season. Didn't play a ton either. And then this past season, he's a starter whole season, and he played pretty decent, I think. So can his arrow keep pointing up, or is this kind of who he is? He might be the weak link. And then Wirfs, I think you feel great about where you got him in a first rounder, but tackles take some time in the NFL usually, so I think you can expect to see some up and down from Wirfs, but the talent is there for him to be a really, really good football player. So it's the best offensive line, both talent-wise and I think execution-wise, that they'll have in a long time, but it's still not without some questions. And obviously Brady's presence, like you said, helps alleviate that a lot more than Winston's would. So how it all works together remains to be seen. I feel good about it, but I don't think it's a unit without weakness either that's going to have their challenges as the season unfolds.
John, you mentioned the functional running game. Now, Brady was used to running back by committee in New England. I mean, that's just what they ran for a long time. The rookie Keyshawn Vaughn, who comes in out of the 3rd round, how much time will he take from Ronald Jones? Do you think there'll be more of a split, or is Jones going to be the primary guy?
I think Jones will be the primary ball carrier. Where you will see competition happen is for 3rd down reps or passing down reps, and in games where they get behind a lot more, you might see Vaughn a lot more if he proves himself. Now, Vaughn is not some dominant college receiver. He was solid in the role in college, okay route runner. I don't think he's this great athlete that has this high ceiling. To me, I thought it was a little bit of an overdraft. You don't want to overdraft running backs. I get there was a huge run on running backs that nobody saw between the Bucs' 2nd round pick and their 3rd round pick. So maybe they felt a little pressure to reach and get the top guy left for them, even if I thought he could have been had a little bit later. So I think he competes, for some reps, mainly as receiving, and like I said, in games they get behind or in games that look like they're going to be shootouts, you might see Vaughn a little more if he proves to be the better receiver. But Rojo has more upside, and big leap again, like Kappa from his rookie year to his 2nd year was a big leap forward. The end of his 2nd year, I thought he was playing his best football so far. So what you want to see so far, but growth isn't always linear. So is it going to stop now at this point? Is Rojo going to keep getting better? Most running backs are pretty close to their ceiling when they get to the NFL. So I think you temper expectations for both of them. You hope one can emerge as a good receiver, pass protection is really going to be the key, though, because Vaughn was just okay at pass protection in college. Jones hasn't really been the guy in that regard so far in the NFL. And Dario Gumbuale, who's probably their third-string running back right now, is their best pass protector. He's not great, but he's pretty good. And so I think that he may get some reps, too. So it may be a real committee situation. But if there's a game where they're running it a lot, I would bet that Ronald Jones gets the bulk of those carries from week 1 to week 16.
We're talking with John Ledyard, who covers the Bucs for Pewter Report. And, John, you could also make the case that Brady has a lot of options to work with in terms of the receiving game. You mentioned the tight ends. We'll get to that in a second. But I want to focus on the wide receivers. It goes without saying, you know what you're getting out of Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, both over 1,000 yards last year. Godwin continues to break out each and every campaign. But I'm intrigued by the third and fourth options. First of all, Tyler Johnson out of Minnesota, I think, is somebody that could add new dimensions. You like what Justin Watson brings to the table, and even Scotty Miller. Out of those three, who do you look as somebody that could be that true, consistent third option this season?
Yeah, so being a little bit new to the scene for the Bucs, just starting to cover them, and beginning of February, I was kind of, okay, I've seen a lot of Mike Evans, a lot of Chris Godwin, and I'm going to eventually get to watching these guys that are on the roster right now, Scotty Miller and Justin Watson. But let's see who they draft first, how high they draft somebody. There was a little bit of talk that if all the tackles were gone, they could take Judy or Ruggs or one of those guys, Lamb, in the first round, which would have been pretty crazy. So it's kind of like a wait-and-see mode. And then they drafted Tyler Johnson, and I like Tyler Johnson a lot. I had a late third-round grade on him. I thought that was a steal in the fifth round. It was my highest-ranked player left on the board, period, any position, when the Bucs took him. So I was thrilled about that pick. I think he's a great contested catch receiver, which you wouldn't guess looking at his frame. But obviously that's something the Bucs have a trait that's in abundance right now in the receivers. Godwin and Evans are two of the elite ball skills receivers in the league, and Gronkowski's obviously probably redefined ball skills for tight ends with how good he's been. So they have a lot of that trait on the field, which makes me wonder, that combined with the rookie learning curve this year going to be a little bit tough, I think, based on the practice time that they're going to miss and so on and so forth. I wonder if Scotty Miller or Justin Watson are in a better position to be that guy week 1 in 11 personnel that's out there as the third receiver. And when it comes down to those two, I look for who has a dominant trait that you can lean on even in a decoy-like role that's going to test and offer defenses a little bit more to think about. To me, that's Scotty Miller. Watson's an okay player. I think he's fine as a depth receiver, good guy you like to have for sure. But Scotty Miller's got 4.36 speed. He's got 13 catches last year, and some of them were some doozies. I mean, he made some really nice plays last year, and that was his rookie season. And I think Watson said 2 years, and I think he's behind Miller right now. So tough for him to make up that ground. My guess is week 1 rolls around. Scotty Miller's your other receiver. I don't think he's necessarily just a slot, although he's 5'9". I think they're going to use some stack releases and get him open as an outside receiver. Happened at times last season, so you have to be careful how you deploy him, I think. But he brings an element in the speed and some of the catches that he made last season too that Watson can't bring to the table, and Johnson may have some time catching up to speed on the offense. Arians has always kind of been a little bit tough on rookies, so I think your best bet is Scotty Miller this season, and Tyler Johnson long-term will be your 11 guys.
We had mentioned tight ends earlier in terms of Gronk and O.J. Howard. Howard, who, by the way, in my mind has still not totally blossomed into the guy who we thought he was going to be when he came into the league. But I'm interested in Gronk because, we know he's badly banged up. We know he took some time off. But, when Witten did that in Dallas and came back after a year retirement, he still put up 60-plus catches. So, John, I'm wondering, what is realistic for Gronk this year coming back to try to play with Tom again?
Yeah, I think what I've continued to say about Gronk is that there's obviously a level of unknown that, none of us can really – we can just speculate. We don't know. I mean, a guy takes a year off of football. If he looks like he's in great shape, he moves great. From the little practice tape and the aerial shots we've seen, that's about it. We don't know a whole lot else in terms of, he could fall off a cliff. I think it's unlikely. But one thing we can say about Gronk is that we've never, from his rookie season to the time he retired, even 2018, which he was banged up and wasn't himself for sure, we've never seen him as not one of the best players in the league at his position. I mean, he has always been at that level. So, based on that huge sample size of his career, I just have a hard time believing that he's going to come back and even be league average. I mean, I think he's going to be really good. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think you forget how to play football. I think he's going to be really good. It's healthy. it's staying healthy that's going to be the key. But he fits in the offense so well. And I think that everybody's talking about the Brady, Arians, is that fit going to happen? Well, Gronk is like the dream tight end because he's been the best vertical tight end, not just, like a Jason Witten you were talking about, who's a good player, but more of a short to intermediate guy. Gronk has been, 16 yards per catch tight end for his whole career. And that's like Arians' dream at the position, to have a player like that. So I just think that that marriage is perfect. Now it's about whether he can stay on the field and what kind of a snap load he can handle.
John, I want to switch gears to the defensive side of the ball, and as we started off the conversation, I think the defense was certainly put in a precarious spot more often than not last season because of field position as a result of all the offensive turnovers. But Shaq Barrett, 19.5 sacks, led the NFL in that category. They give him the franchise tag. They bring back JPP. They certainly have some big boys up front. What do you look at this defense heading into 2020 as to whether or not it could truly build off of some of the positive flashes that Todd Bowles and company showcased late last year?
Yeah, I think that's one of the most encouraging things, what you said, like late last year, how much the young talent came along, especially at cornerback. I think that was the big question mark. Bucs have not had good cornerback play for ages. I mean, it feels like since the Ronnie Barber days. I mean, Brent Grimes at the end of his career, it's just not. They just have not had good defensive back play, period. And so how well Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy-Bunting, and Carlton Davis eventually played together was basically going to dictate how good that unit would be for the next 3 to 5 years, because they drafted all of those guys third round or higher, and so those are their guys. That's their future. And you can throw MJ Stewart in that mix too, although he's fallen well behind those three. And he could be on the bubble this season even. But I think those three, when they finally got on the field, they benched MJ Stewart, they got rid of Vernon Hargreaves, they cut him, and then I think at that point when it became those three, Sean Murphy-Bunting and Carlton Davis playing on the outside at base, and then Murphy-Bunting would kick to the slot, and Dean would come out and play the other outside cornerback spot. Toward the second half of the season, last 6-7 games, and they played really well. I mean, certainly there are rookies' ups and downs, and they played some tough competition. They played Atlanta twice in that stretch, and Julio and Calvin Ridley stretched them, but there were great reps against those guys. Dean got lit up by Seattle, and then I think after that, it was kind of like hair on fire, playing out of his mind. He was one of the best corners in the league. Pro Football Focus's rankings, really anybody's rankings, tons of plays on the ball, a couple picks. So Dean looked like a future star in an admittedly very small sample size of like 5 or 6 games. Davis looks like a solid number 2 corner. Some limitations that'll probably always be there, but a gamer, physical, aggressive, plays every snap hard. And Murphy-Bunting, how does he play on the slot? He was an outside receiver or outside corner in college, so that transition I think is sticky at times for him last year. So how does he kind of handle those reps when you're a nickel most of the time, and he's going to have to be their slot guy because they don't have like a true slot corner, how most people think of the position. He's kind of like a big slot corner. So, but again, another tough guy who tackles like crazy and is always coming forward to get guys on the ground. So I think the biggest thing is toughness and aggressiveness at the cornerback position. They haven't had that in forever. They were a soft defense under Mike Smith. They're not soft anymore. How the safety play handles this season is huge. Antoine Winfield was a huge draft pick because the safety play was the weakest link on the defense all year last year, whether it was Whitehead or Andrew Adams, being kind of a stopgap guy but not making a ton of plays. I thought Mike Edwards has struggled as a rookie, which you expect, but can he bounce back? And does Justin Evans ever come back from injury, or is his career kind of over? The foot injuries that he's had has kind of really derailed things. He's missed the last season and a half, and Winfield the rookie. So a lot of potential in the safety group. You could have a great top 3 potentially, but there's a lot of question marks too. So that's the unit I think to really watch.